Aloha everybody, this is Dr. Beth Ann and welcome to July's edition of Your Heart Magic. I don't know about you, but I feel like I just made the June video for this and here it is a month later already, so it feels like time is flying by right now. For this month, I chose the theme, the gifts of the unknown, as our topic to focus on because I'm seeing not only in my own life, but in the lives of many people that I'm working with and hearing from this common theme that a lot of us are going through really big transformations and changes. For some people, that is physical ones, physical relocations. I know people who have just moved. I know people who are moving. I know people who are being called into new jobs, new relationships, questioning the relationship they're in. And I know a lot of people who are just going through identity shifts and feeling called into something bigger or something that looks just a little bit different than their previous version of self, and they don't know exactly what that looks like. So a lot of us are being called to trust right now and to step into what I call the spiritual backcountry. I'm originally from Alaska, and if you have been in the backcountry of Alaska, depending on how backcountry you actually go, it is unknown, uncharted terrain a lot of the time. And I feel like a lot of people right now are going into sort of this metaphorical, energetic, uncharted terrain, and it feels wild and it feels scary and it feels like I don't know what's around the next bend, and it can be really hard to trust what is trying to emerge in our lives. So I thought focusing on the gifts of that would be a beautiful way to bring some light and perspective to that shared experience of becoming that many of us are going through in our own individual ways. And I'm going to read a poem, a very short poem that I wrote about the unknown. I wrote this back in 2014, and at the time I had met my now husband. Then he was just boyfriend, and he'd moved to Alaska, and we were very much like love or bust. We will see where this relationship will take us. And my life was going through a lot of transitions, and it felt different and scary, and I felt my identity shifting. And this poem was a result of that. It is called Sticky Gray. Maybe it is okay not to know the answers, not to know how to feel, to simply make your way through the sticky gray, like a mouse sensing its path in the darkness, knowing that you'll get there when you get there. And in the meantime, there is the unrealized truth of this moment to be had. At the time I wrote this poem, I kept seeing mice. I'm going to say location appropriate because they weren't in the house or anything like that. But I remember seeing one outside. I remember being in my house in Alaska and seeing one like run down the outside of my window. That one kind of freaked me out. And right before I wrote this poem, a couple weeks later, I was in Oregon running a race, the race I met my husband at just the year before, and a mouse ran across my path really close to this beautiful creek and waterfall. And I was thinking about how mice are spirit guides for being able to like not have to see the path. Like they rely on their senses, they rely on extrasensory senses in order to kind of navigate and to figure out where they're going to go next. And so they're really beautiful spirit teachers, animal teachers of trusting an unknown path and really trusting that we will get to where we need to go, that we don't have to be able to see the whole path. And that's really hard for a lot of us, right? It's hard for me. I have been on an unknown path for a while now, since I moved to Kauai 2 years ago and sort of ended one life and reinvented myself and started another over here. It's all been unknown. And I thought I would see so much more clearly by now. And I'm finding I'm still a little bit like that mouse, sensing my way along the path, following the breadcrumbs, following the inclinations of my heart. That is really how our soul speaks to us. We are often not given the blueprint. We are often not given the bigger picture. We might be given like the frame, like we might feel called to move somewhere or called to say, I'm going to be a teacher, or I need to leave this relationship. Like, we might have the big piece, but like the little details for how do we go about doing it are often what we have to fill in ourselves. That's what we are called to follow. That's where we sort of follow the leanings and we say, oh, I'm going to go in this direction now, and I'm going to go in this direction. And that is how we experience and experiment and make mistakes that aren't really mistakes, because they're just lessons for soul growth. And the gift of being in an unknown space. I shut my book. I shouldn't have, because I really got the last part of the poem right. If I can find it again. Here it is. Knowing that you'll get there when you get there, and in the meantime, there is the unrealized truth of this moment to be had. That's really the gift of the unknown, the unrealized truth of this moment. Being in a space of not knowing forces us to get really, really, really present. And that's hard to do, right? I don't know about you, but I kind of want to know. So I can spend a lot of time in my head thinking about ideas and what ifs and projecting into the future and thinking about 3 months down the line to 6 months down the line. For those of us who are, we're all kind of anxiety prone. It's really hard to like rest in the moment and trust. But most of us are planners and we want to have some sense. And when you're on the unknown path, you can sort of set that bigger frame that we talked about. But the only way to go about putting the pieces together is to live it day to day. It is to be very present. It is to say, what does the universe have for me today? What does spirit have for me today? It is to grapple with our messy emotions as they come up. It's to dig through them. It's to learn the lesson. It's to have ambivalent days where we think, this sucks. I want to go back to what's known. I want to go back home. I want to return. It's sitting with ourselves. It's learning to hold our own hand through those moments and sort of tolerate that ambiguity. And then we wake up the next day and maybe our mood shifted a little bit. Maybe, like I said, our inclination draws us and we say, oh, now I see my next little step. It's learning when to take inventory and take stock of ourselves and say, I have to stop thinking about this. I'm not going to think up any more solutions today. And I need to just be still and receive. And it's knowing when to say, okay, now it's time to act. I've consistently been feeling drawn towards this next step. It's time to actualize that. The gift of the unknown is forcing us to slow down and to live very, very present-based, very in the moment. And that's really where the gifts are had. That's really where the moment right now is really the only place that we can have a visceral experience with ourselves and our inner universe and the external universe. It's not happening 6 months from now. It's happening right now. And when we are in a space of certainty in our life, we don't really have to trust on much outside of our own devices, right? When the life path is set, there's not really a lot of adventure or curiosity. There's not really a need to dive into a deeper relationship with Source, with higher power, with God, with, I say, the universe. I'm talking about the same thing. There's not really a need for that, right? We just sort of rely on our own devices and we've gotten ourselves that far and our life is looking pretty good. When we are in a space of transition and transformation, that's when we get to sit down and really dive into a more deeply intimate relationship with the universe and with ourselves. That's where all the nuance happens. That's where the nitty-gritty takes place. That's where, just like a real love relationship, when you get past the shiny, sparkly stuff and you really start to get to know somebody for who they truly are, that's where the rich stuff, the deep stuff is found. And the only way to experience that is to be in that space of uncertainty, because it puts it there right in front of our face and we can't ignore it because we don't know. And so we have to make choices to trust. We have to make choices to go within. We have to make choices to to pray, to seek answers, to look for the signs, to work with spirit. We have to pay attention. We have to notice. We have to get out of our head and into our heart. And we have to learn to sometimes just tolerate the moment and see the bigger picture and know that the answers are coming. So that is the biggest gift that I see, and I feel like my 2014-year-old self got it right. And I didn't even realize the full wisdom of the words at the time, that sometimes we just sort of sense our way like the mouse, and we will get there when we get there. And in the moment, there is the unrealized truth of this moment to be had. So I wish you to realize the truths of your moments this July. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to go a little bit deeper, feel free to pop over to my website at bethannkw.com and sign up for my soul care letter, Your Heart Magic, where this video will be linked along with a blog and exercises for developing the gifts of the unknown in your life. Thank you so much for joining me here. Aloha, everybody. I will see you in August for the next edition of Your Heart Magic. Be well, be love, and just keep being present.